September 11th is a mark inside our history, inside of us. It took the hardest day in America to unite all of us. For some, it created a new sense of purpose and allegiance. Sergeant First Class Brian Leonard was near the Pentagon on September 11, 2001. An Army photographer who'd been exposed to more than most service members. He'd been deployed to Iraq, was a military photographer for years, and while serving in the Army, he earned the title of becoming a White House photographer under President George W. Bush. Welcome to Stars of Service. I'm Brian Christensen. I'm joined by retired Army Sergeant First Class Brian Leonard, who was working near the Pentagon on 9/11. Hey, Brian, how are you doing today?
Good. How you doing, Brian?
Good. So you were actually teaching a class that morning. Talk to us about that.
Yes. At the time on 9/11, I was assigned to the White House Communications Agency, which is the unit responsible for setting up and providing all communication capabilities to the president, vice president, and such. We were in charge of the podiums during events.
And you worked in the White House. Let's just go ahead and
I
say
did
that.
for a short time, yes, as a
pretty
videographer traveling with the press or the president, depending on what day it was. But I also worked in the photo lab that the White House had that supported the presidential photographers. And at the time, that's what my job was, printing photos that went to the White House to get distributed out to people, as well as displayed on the walls inside the White House, among other things. On 9/11, that day, I was actually on vacation. I had put in for 2 weeks leave, and that was the week that I had started. And that week, I had to teach CPR, because I was responsible for teaching CPR and first aid to everybody in the unit.
On your day off.
On my day off, right. We couldn't get another instructor that day, so, and I enjoyed it very much. So it was not a big deal for me to come into work and teach CPR that day. So that's what I did. I came in, and it was a beautiful day in DC that day. I mean, there wasn't a cloud in the sky. There was no haze. You could see for miles. You could see the monuments from all points. Very beautiful day. Came in, got set up, started the class, and went through the introduction of first aid and CPR and stuff like that. We talked about how to take care of a scene, and then we got into the part where we have to deal with multiple casualties. And at that point, somebody comes into the classroom and says, "Hey, a plane just hit Tower 2 in New York." We all kind of froze up and kind of, wow, that's unusual. Wow. Okay. So it kind of messed up the jive of the class. We tried to pull through to the rest of that hour, and which wasn't much more to do for that lesson thing. So once we were done, everybody was like, "Hey, we need to take a break. We need to get over and see what's going on TV." So we got to the break point, went next door to another classroom where CNN was and cable was set up, and we started looking at the images of Tower 2 on fire, and everyone's just kind of dumbfounded and crazy. And next thing we know, another plane comes into the scene and slams Tower 1. And that was, yeah, we just knew at that point we were at war.
And you just were starting an exercise basically to, in case there was a large amount of people. Talk about that, the timing of this.
It was uncanny. It was a discussion about how to prioritize casualties when the person that's hurt the worst, you need to take care of them first, and then kind of prioritize from there. And it's mostly a discussion at the time.
Just the base foundation of
It
understanding
just,
it.
yeah, just a basic foundation understanding. But the timing of the fact that we were talking about multiple casualties and then that happened, I don't know. That's just weird timing.
Right.
It was just, I don't know. How do you time that stuff? And
So what happened after the second plane hit?
well, at that point, we were wondering what to do next. We started reaching out to family. We started reaching out to our units, to the different offices. You know, what are we going to do? You know, what are we going to do with the class? Obviously, the class was not going to happen anymore because world stuff is happening around us. I got a hold of my wife. She was working in Fairfax City at a law firm. Um, I was on vacation, but she wasn't. But she's like, "What do we do? What do we do? Are you okay?" I told her, "Just stay where you are. I don't think you're anywhere that anyone's interested in. Just stay. I'm fine, and I'll keep in touch." Eventually, we're trying to figure out what's going on and where we need to go. And not too long after that, we hear a large boom and a shake. The building rattled, and we're, oh my gosh, what just happened? And we all ran outside, and there's big, huge puff of smoke coming out of the Pentagon area. Yeah, as you see right there. So yeah, I would say that it was a humbling experience at that moment to know that war had come to our door, literally at our door, and we did not know what to do, except to get back to our offices and start trying to assess what to do next. And that's exactly what we had to do. The bases were all getting locked down. We had to move from one side of the base to the next, but everything was getting restricted. The city of Washington, D.C. was getting cleared out. The mayor had ordered evacuation. There was rumors starting that there might have been a car bomb near the State Department, which never panned out. The White House was evacuated. The Capitol was evacuated. Uh, we started hearing not too long after threat that there might be another plane heading our way, but we didn't know what was going on with that. Then, of course, later we find out that the plane actually went down, and that ended up being the plane in Somerset, Pennsylvania, that
Yeah.
the passengers took over, and unfortunately, the what happened there. So it was a very, very chaotic day, to say the least. I didn't get to leave the base until almost 4:30 in the afternoon when they finally opened it to allow people to leave. And It took me about 4.5 hours to drive from Anacostia Naval Base, Naval Annex, to Fort Belvoir, where I lived, which is usually a 45-minute drive. Turned out to be 4.5 hours because of all the traffic and all the checkpoints that the military has set up around the bases. Um, and um, so
So
sitting
the
at home watching the replays over and over and over again, um, that's just what our night was after that.
and everyone else's, as we all could not stop watching the news for
No, we
days
couldn't.
on end. I am there with you. Can
My
we?
wife had told me that one of her coworkers who worked at the Pentagon, um, his office was actually where the plane hit. He was a Navy officer. Um, the only reason why he was not there is because he was dropping his child off to daycare for the first time.
What a miracle!
Uh, yeah, for him it was, but unfortunately he lost all of his comrades in the office, He was the only survivor from his office, uh, uh, because he was on the freeway when the plane hit.
Oh, jeez.
Um, so it very
Yeah,
tragic day, obviously.
completely. Brian, I really, really thank you for just opening up about that time. 24 years ago. I can't even believe it's been that long. But if you wouldn't mind just sticking around after the break and just talking about what the days after that, what they were like. But we will take a quick break from Stars of Service, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Stars of Service. I'm Brian Christensen. Today I'm joined by retired Army Sergeant First Class Brian Leonard, who was nearby the Pentagon the day of 9/11 24 years ago. Brian, we were talking earlier about how close you were to the Pentagon when the plane hit. Can you talk to us? What you left work around 4:30? What was the rest of the night like? What'd you do the next day?
Um, Needless to say, it was pretty stressful. I think the when I got home, obviously my wife and I were, um, I mean, we just held each other, as we could see what's going on with the world. We were hearing rumors in the neighborhood about people not coming home. We didn't know who uh who were casualties, who were stuck at the Pentagon because of what was going on. We were pretty certain that the place was going to be locked down for, you know, people that were taking care of the strategic issues that go on.
In your
Eventually, that panned
neighborhood,
out to uh, two people who were confirmed dead uh, from the collision. Um, but that took about 2 or 3 days to figure out. Um, but there were kids that uh, their parents never came home, unfortunately.
the
We had
neighborhood that you
also,
lived in, a good number of people lived there, worked at the Pentagon, right?
um, not just the Pentagon, but the old guard, the unit that
Arlington.
does all the ceremonies in Arlington and such. Um, Co-workers from the White House, other units all around
Okay.
the DC area, not just at Fort Belvoir. Then my neighbors were, as I said, were part of the old guard, and they were assigned to go into the Pentagon to assist with the recovery of the casualties.
Right.
Um, so at night, as a former EMT, I had been a paramedic for a little while in Tennessee, and while I was still serving. Um, One thing I learned as a as that is to talk about trauma that you experience, so that it helps to not suffer from post-traumatic stress
Right.
as much. You vent it, you get it out, you talk about it, so you can help deal with it, so you can move on to the next day. So we got together with our neighbors who were unfortunately in the building doing that, dealing with that, and we would tell them, "You need to tell us what you saw. You need to vent this, get it out." Uh, so that's what they did, and I mean, I won't discuss what they said here, but I will tell you that it was pretty horrific, and having to hear them talk about that was very therapeutic for them. But at the same time, it added to the trauma and the tragedy that was going on here. If there was no doubt for anyone who thinks that an airplane did not strike the Pentagon, I can assure you 100% that's what happened, based on the testimony of these soldiers who were in the building and having to do that honorable yet tragic thing that they had to deal with on a daily basis until it was done.
I couldn't
Um,
imagine having that job. and continuing your day to day, whatever job you normally had to begin with, even weeks after that, of
I was
being,
still on vacation for 2 weeks. So, and as a volunteer with the Red Cross with their disaster services, I was immediately in contact with them saying, "Hey, what do you need? Are we doing anything to help these, you know, the response out?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're setting up tents. We're setting up this big, huge operation in the parking lot at the Pentagon. We're setting up tents for relief for the federal workers and the investigators and all of that. Can you come out to this?" I'm like, I'm there, absolutely. 9/11 happened on Tuesday. By Friday, I was standing in a tent, a GP medium tent for the military folks. They know what that is. Big smelly green tent. Uh,
I can smell it right now.
yeah, exactly. Just outside the Pentagon, within about 50 yards of the hole, which that's what everybody called it now, the big collapsed area
Right.
with the flag hanging off to the right. Um, I was passing out drinks and food, socks, shoes for the dogs that were sniffing stuff out. Anything that we can give them, as well as a friendly voice, a
Mhm.
shoulder to cry on. I did that Friday. The weekend went past. I was back there on Monday. I did the whole week, Monday through Friday, again, um, standing in the tent, passing out food. They had set up this whole encampment called Camp Hope in one of the parking lots. It was a huge endeavor. So many donations coming in, uh, so that everybody that was working on investigating and recovering and doing all that had all of the resources that they needed. We were even taking food into the Pentagon to the offices where there were people that were they had to stay in the Pentagon and work 24 hours a day. They were sleeping in the Pentagon. They couldn't leave because the situation was evolving and still, we were still trying to figure out the response to how we were going to deal with everything.
Right.
Um, so so I spent 6 days staring at the Pentagon, smelling the smells, taking in all of the everything that is going on around you. Um, it was for me a very lasting thing. Uh, Years later, just recently, you and I had a visit with a few weeks ago. Um, I was spending my time with my daughter in DC, taking her around to the sites and such, and driving by the Pentagon, going into Washington DC. Even to this day, I see the hole, even though the building has been repaired and looks as good as it ever did.
Mhm.
It's still a very lasting impression on me. I didn't know anybody that died there, but I have friends that did. I had military friends, people that I went to church with, um, friend of a friend kind of situation that did know these people. Um, to me, for what I did and what I saw there, working in front of the building, helping these people, talking to these people, it will be a lasting. It continues to be a lasting impression to me. Uh,
When you were talking about it at breakfast a few weeks ago, telling me, I had no idea that you had been a part of that, that you saw that up close. And one thing I wanted to ask you was what, being there for so long, and you kind of answered this already, but I mean, when you do see the Pentagon, you see that hole.
Yeah.
How is that inside you?
It's hard to reckon. Um, it's the trauma of the day and the days after. It's one thing to just see it on TV and you can kind of set that aside to some degree. That's that's a lasting impression, I think. It's in front of you constantly. For me, it was 6 days for about 8 hours each day. That doesn't go away very quickly. And as I said, when you can still see it 20 years plus later,
Right.
um, I don't know. It's hard.
Well, you are so incredibly brave anyway, but to come and share that day, those days, those weeks, months, what it was like and everything. I can't tell you how incredibly strong and brave you are. Um, and just to share your words and everything. We're going to take one more quick break. And after that, we're going to hear about some of your adventures, after the fact of 9/11, and something that most people don't know about Brian is he got to work in the White House. We'll see a picture of that. This is Stars of Service. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Stars of Service. I'm Brian Christensen. I'm joined by retired Army Sergeant First Class Brian Leonard, who was a Army photographer and was nearby the Pentagon on 9/11 24 years ago. He was also a White House photographer and was deployed to Iraq. I really like this picture. This is fantastic, by the way.
My retirement photo.
Yes.
Uh,
Um,
with all my bling.
and this one in Iraq, you were telling me about it.
Yeah, it was during my last mission. We were getting ready to be relieved by the 982nd Combat Camera, which was the Army's reserve unit. That's part of the active combat camera.
And you and the president right here.
That was my departure photo in 2005 with my wife standing there, and she's pregnant at the time with our twins.
Wow.
Which the president made a joke about. Hey, I've got twins too.
You did that really well too. And then you have a smorgasbord of you sent me pictures of all kinds of lanyards of credentials, which I'm sure the Secret Service are going to be like, why do you have those on TV? Oh, whatever.
Oh no,
They're
not at all. Those were little press credentials that every time we went on a trip, the depending on whether you traveled with the press corps or on Air Force One, you received a a credential of some sort.
right.
And mostly I traveled with the press, so they had these little cards that they made for each of them. I think you had a picture of some of those that I had sent you.
Right.
Um, and it told what city we were going to.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool. And you
and
got to actually fly on the 747 Air Force One.
I did quite a few times. Matter of fact,
Nice.
I traveled with President Clinton and President George W. Bush.
Wow.
Um, I've got to videotape uh, events around the nation, also in uh, Africa, Canada,
You just
Mexico.
showed your age by saying videotape, by the way.
Okay,
I hope you
yes.
bought lots of footage
We
with you.
were, yes, we were pre-digital age. Um, when I was still working in the photo lab at the time, we were still dealing with film. And just starting to cross into the digital age of photography.
Wow.
That was started during the George W. Bush time frame, where we started converting away from film and going into the digital. photography.
And now the photo lab is probably a
with
snack room.
with lenses that only had this small little tiny spot that you could aim at and take a picture.
Right.
Even though you could see this big, huge, frame in your lens, you can only do this
Right.
one little square in the middle, kind of stuff. So it was a pretty crazy time.
And you were an Army instructor. Well, actually, I mean, not just Army instructor, but you helped teach the new generation of photographers at they call it DINFOS, the Defense Information School at Fort Meade, Maryland. How long were you there for?
I was there for 4 years. That was my retirement assignment. That's a good way to go out, teach the next
That's
generation.
where I met you. So
And that's where we met. You were a participant in what was then called the DoD Worldwide Photographic Workshop, which for photographers, this was equivalent to the Eddie Adams Workshop, but for the military.
right.
Because we did use the same people that mentored at Eddie Adams came over and worked with us. So we were really
It was an amazing experience, and you were a huge part of that too.
Right. For 2 years, I ran the workshop and coordinating all of the activities. And that's how you and I met. You applied for the workshop as a reservist, and I had to fight for you because we didn't have reservists that had applied in the past.
Brian's sticking up for other Brians. How about
Brian's that got to stick out for other Brians. That's for sure.
Well, Brian,
and you got in, and we've been friends ever since. And now look where you're doing. So
please, look at you. Come on. But seriously, my friend, thank you so much for coming on today and talking about 24 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long anyway. So thank you so much for watching Stars of Service. We'll see you next time.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.